Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Full Focus Podcast, the cinema-based podcast where a couple of freelancers get together to talk shop. My name is Mike, and as always, I am joined by my brother in crime, master isolationist, speaker to many through many a digital portal, teacher, educator, and overall cool guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Andrus.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Hold the applause. You can hold it. You can forget. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here as always, Michael. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to have you, Robert. Even in the amongst the interwebs, I'm very happy that we still have enough room in the room for my ego. You're a breath of fresh air, a ray of sunshine, as it were, for an overall. You can only stare at the same poster that you bought when you moved into your new condo for so long before it starts talking to you, and then you begin to realize, I am going crazy. Amazing. Let's go watch a movie about a virus.
Well, I think that, let's just rip the Band-Aid off really quick. Right. So, y'all, we talked about doing the podcast again and figuring this out as far as the whole COVID situation of all of it. Mm-hmm. So we're in the thick of it. It's April 26th in the year of COVID 2020. And not only is this the year of the COVID, this is also the year of the mom had a heart attack.
Oh, God, man.
Mom had open heart surgery. And 2 earthquakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the end of the world apocalypse, COVID.
But we're still here, and we still have a need to put on our busted ass movie podcast.
We decided to move in the middle of everything.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
What were you thinking?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't the slightest idea of what you and your family have been dealing with over the past, to hell with this past month, the past quarter of the year. And me having to, switch out my digs. We're Full Focus Studios has changed to a lovely 3-bedroom ranch to a 2-bedroom condo in the suburb of Salt Lake.
The ranch. I miss the ranch.
Oh, I know. I miss the garden, actually. I miss the lady there. But I mean, geez, it's the reason as to why it's been so long since our last update is because everything you mentioned, Andrus, everything is crazy. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and that's just for the first time in I think 20 some odd years, Utah has dealt with a series of earthquakes that have been popping up. The highest one being like a 6.5 on the good old Richter scale. And even like the aftershocks still ranging in around like 4 point whatever. And then
I was actually teaching a class.
Get out of here. It's
really funny too, because like all of us are just like, okay, I'm feeling it. Are you feeling it?
That's the actor's high they're feeling. That's what's going on.
I even had an LA actress and an Atlanta actress on that call. And they're just like, oh, we're okay. Actually, that was the following week. That's not. But I did have people all over the area. Some people felt it, some people didn't. So as far as my safety was concerned, I wasn't too worried about it because nothing was falling off walls.
Right.
I have a picture that's a little bit askew that I have not corrected yet. But other than that, my health and safety were not threatened by that.
That's good to hear. I was 1 week into buying this new place where I'm living at now, we're recording at now, and it started shaking all over the place, and I was just thinking, just on top of everything else, I just bought this place, and it's going to fall apart around me.
Right.
But luckily it didn't. We're all in one piece.
Sturdy, right?
Yeah. So it's all like the natural stuff and the countrywide stuff, and then it goes into the personal stuff. Like with me, the main thing that I was doing in buying a condo was having a place where my mom can move in. She's living with me right now. I don't live with my mom. My mom lives with me, and it's.
Well, you're a good man.
Thank you. You're right, but. What really was popping up on your end of things, like you just mentioned, huge family stuff going in. Your mother has gone through a couple of procedures, and she's pulling through okay. And I just can't applaud you enough for just wanting to not decompress to the point that you become like You know how like how they say that like stars in the solar system, they'll expand, then they'll compress before they leave existence. Yeah, exactly. If I was in your situation, I'd definitely go supernova. But luckily, you are Robert Andrus, and it's going to take more than an earthquake, the end of the world, and your mom going through some difficult things that she's pulling through now. God bless her, and I'm very happy for you guys. It's going to take more than that to bring you down, because obviously we're here to speak to the 6 people that listen to this podcast and let them know that we're back and that we're going to keep it going.
Will quickly become more.
Indeed.
If I can use a virus analogy. The word will spread.
Indeed.
That's so gross. I don't even like using.
No. Go with it. That's awesome.
I mean, that's my sense of humor. I'm stupid when it comes to sense of humor.
Nah, I like it.
But yeah, no. Really quick, I will say, I've got my own personal shout out to medical staff and our medical workers.
Absolutely.
In this pandemic-y type world that we live in, they were incredible. Incredible from beginning to end, and she's still in a specialty hospital, and they're all doing their jobs, and by them just doing their jobs, my mom has another shot at life.
Yeah, that lightens my heart so much. I would never in 1,000 years would I
can say thank you isn't enough.
Oh yeah.
On behalf of my family and me and everybody else that I know that loves my mom, thank you.
Oh, that is a huge point that we have to take into consideration too. Not only because of the movie that we're going to be talking about today, but also because of obviously going back to the real world events once more. Utah has not been hit as hard as a lot of other states in the nation, and one of the main reasons is to the competence of the medical staff that we do have available, and also from the political side. I'm not the biggest fan of the conservatism that happens here in Utah from a political standpoint, but I'm glad people were able to put certain things into play and do what needed to be done to make sure that we don't have any records when it comes to the deaths or the
it's nice that we live in the bubble that we do.
It does.
Surrounded by the mountains that we have that are not only gorgeous, but we have an international airport, and that could have very easily been affected. Or I don't want to make a joke, but that's terrible, and I'm not going to. I even know.
You're a better man than I.
The cause and effect of having an international airport and decisions that have been made as far as being cautious. I think I was even making jokes at the beginning of the mass hysteria.
Sure.
Even though I can't say that it was mass.
Well, hindsight's 20/20 with anything.
Yeah, but I mean, like the idea. I'm not a news watcher.
I feel you.
Right. So the fact that maybe there were talks and warnings and heads up scenarios leading into the widespread news coverage, where now everybody is being told to stay home, and it's not just an isolated lone country circumstances, now worldwide.
Right. And even more so, it's a situation where now the United States is the leading. Yeah. So it's time to make sure that even though we can't get lost in even though it's easy to, we can't get lost in the depression. We can't get lost into the difficult situations that we are dealing with, both from a worldwide perspective to a community, to the stuff that's happening in home, which we talked about a little bit before we even started rolling on the episode today.
Right.
It's important to focus on the positive as well, and even though it might be a little bit harder to find in regards to the climate that we're dealing with today, it's still there, despite the fact that we're all dealing with a very frustrating situation, some of us more than others. I'm very happy, from a personal standpoint, that you and I have the capability in some way or another to still, quote unquote, get in a room and talk about something that, does make us happy, and something that does impassion us, and, just have the capability to be social and not forget what's happened, but, my computer's just giving me weird noises. Not forget what's been going on or try to avoid what's going on, but not disregarding the good things that are happening for us as well, and we have to focus on that and everything else. But I'm so very happy to have you back. I'm so very happy to be able to be recording today, and I am so very happy to have revisited a movie that I had forgotten even existed, and more importantly, forgotten that
Are you serious?
No, for sure. I not only forgot this movie was made, I forgot that I liked it. I saw this in the theaters, and we are kind of going on a bit of a tired situation. It kind of like we're kind of like following the boots of like pretty much every other podcaster that's out there. But of course, we are.
What do you mean by that? Jumping on the Outbreak bandwagon.
The Outbreak bandwagon, the viral bandwagon, as it were.
Yeah.
But we are going to be talking about a movie about a particular pandemic, a particular virus. Of course, we are speaking about 1995's Outbreak, starring Dustin Hoffman, Morgan Freeman, and another incredible cast. But before we jump in, why don't we play the preview and discuss?
WB.
In a remote African jungle, a small monkey is
can I
captured,
tell you that I thought of
bound for a pet store in America.
Yeah, it's the same monkey. It's the same one.
Animal carries
Is it?
a deadly virus.
Oh, he scratched me. All these previews from the mid to late 90s, they fill me with so much joy because it's always like the same thing. Like looking back at it now, this is like Photoshop stuff we could do in our living room. But these are for like multi-million-dollar winning. I mean, it's great.
We dare not refuse.
Look at this cast too: Russo, Freeman, Hoffman.
Will do his duty.
God.
Don't forget about the Cutting Jr. Come on now. They couldn't even advertise him because he had one Academy Award.
You got 100 more
sure.
infected. It's spreading like a brush fire.
What are you talking about?
Or Kevin Spacey for that matter.
Dude, we'll talk about that.
We have a very interesting problem.
If that bug gets out of there, 260 million Americans will be dead or dying.
I'm
It's
leaving
funny,
with the
the
team.
trailer does not do the movie justice.
No.
California town.
It really doesn't.
Sam, I want to save these people same as you.
To the inner circle of power in Washington.
The most optimistic projection for the spread of the virus is
Going to
this.
Washington, D.C.
24
Then they have to have like the
hours,
citywide
56
map.
hours,
The greatest medical
The whole
crisis
country
of all
goes
time
red.
Indeed.
Can't stop it.
begins.
I love that a helicopter pilot,
Yeah.
Many people are dying and are going to
competent
continue
training,
to die unless we find this
outflies.
monkey.
Yeah. Trained. Oh, can't wait to talk about that.
And where did she establish her relationship with the monkey? I'm just
No
saying,
idea.
he will only come out for me. No, I don't think that
No, I
that's
don't think so. No.
He's been out there for a day.
Well, at least he likes apples, you know?
He does like apples.
So
It's the monkey that likes apples.
Indeed. Because they weren't gonna be like, you know, they weren't gonna like give him a banana or anything. That's kind of racist. And not all monkeys like bananas. Come on.
Well, do you know the banana was used amongst the other monkeys? They shared the.
Oh, that's right. I remember now.
You can't have a banana and a banana and a banana.
Banana and a banana.
It would have been nice to have an orange slice in there somewhere.
How dare you? How dare you? Yeah, maybe like some sort of like, you know, maybe some pineapple or whatever. Hey, what about a coconut? I mean, I know, but you know,
I think
diversify.
coconuts are rich, but I mean, whatever.
What's the most non-racist fruit? I wonder. Anyway, just in case you guys didn't realize,
Fruit would be a tomato.
it's completely inclusive.
It's a vegetable tomato.
It's
A vegetable fruit, tomatoes.
It has seeds. Oh man, this is a debate that has gone on for centuries that we are going to be able to take care of and relegate in this episode. Is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable? We'll decide. But of course, back onto the line of cinema and off of a properly balanced, fruitful diet. We are talking about Outbreak, the not award-winning, but definitely the interesting and I think now after rewatching it, the wonderful film that was brought to us by Warner Brothers Studios back in 1995. I was a sophomore in high school when I saw this. It was amazing. And it had a rip-roaring cast. We're talking heavy hitters from the 90s. Well, it's over like film in general. Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo, Morgan, the man Freeman, our Kevin Spacey in an earlier role. Cuba Mother-Lovin' Gooding Jr., still, to this date, one of my favorite actors of all time. Donald Sutherland, Patrick Dempsey. I mean, and also like, we had to have like it's interesting to me that they were able to go to an African village in Zaire and look at the voodoo guy who was talking about how the gods are angry, and he had a perfectly coiffed mustache. It's a beautiful thing. It's a very LA shooting kind of thing that pops up in that kind of production. But who knows? Maybe people who were practicing voodoo in Zaire during the 90s had a barbershop they went to. I'm sure they did.
He was a witch doctor, and he also had a barbershop.
There's nothing wrong with that. That. In fact, if anything, it's my ignorance that's pushing along that stereotype, and I apologize.
How did you know?
You're right. Well, I mean, I know like a lot of witch doctors, and
no. The funny thing is I wasn't even paying attention to the mustache.
Really?
Yeah. That didn't take me out of it at all. That's awesome. What did? If we're talking about these moments, we might as well just go right into it, right?
Yeah.
The White House Chief of Staff meeting. What stood out to you in that? The excellent speech that was being delivered by amazing actor.
Get into the dialogue of this movie.
He was really good, by the way.
They were all really good. That's one thing that really kind of like tugged at my heartstrings a bit. You can really tell the quality of an actor when all you give them is ridiculous dialogue and they still make you take it seriously. Every time Dustin Hoffman and Morgan Freeman were in the room, every time Hoffman and Russo were in the room, and it was just like a 1v1 kind of thing, it was great. It was great. It was like watching theater. But was it because like the American seal wasn't on the table or something? Or what was it? What was the big...
No, it was the note taker. Did you see the note taker typing?
I did not.
He was doing this the entire time. She was just waving at her.
She wasn't even touching the keys, huh?
Right? She was supposed to be the transcriptionist or whatever that title is.
Right.
It was the note taker in the back corner, and literally she was doing this.
I love it.
She wasn't even attention to detail like that, where it just takes me out of it.
Yeah.
It just nuts.
I remember that stuff. That's happened on more than one movie that we talked about.
The mustache for you. It's the transcriptionist for me.
Yeah, I feel you. I think it's interesting though, like how this still follows the textbook 90s kind of outlook for movies. I mean, the same way that you were able to have the whole jungle and everything in Jurassic Park replicated on the studio, and you could tell. Is the same way in which you look at the structure of the movie. I'm not making that much sense. Let me see. In the 90s, there was this particular formula that you could follow that may not get an Oscar, but at the very least would allow you to make a lot of money at the box office. It had to be an action film. It had to have a decent cast. That's stuff that's still going on since the day film was when we were able to put like soundtracks into film. That's been the two things that you needed. But you always had to have some sort of weird locale, which was usually going to be shot in Hawaii, which this movie falls into. You're going to have some weird shouting match that comes out throughout the entire movie, and then you're going to have, of course, like the whole culmination of the hero's journey that's not only suffered by the main character, but is also kind of spread out to all the subsidiaries that are helping that character get through. You found this like in all of these 90s flicks that were coming out, and especially all in the action movies. And one thing that really appeared to me that I forgot about this movie that I realized 2 days ago when I finished watching it was that that's what this movie is. People come and they try and find I want to see something like, Poseidon, or I want to see something like Contagion, or like, some sort of like, the world's ending kind of thing where you're going to have, 16 characters, but only one matters. But that isn't Outbreak. Outbreak is an action movie that's disguised as a virus movie. Because you have a condensed cast, you have the hero's journey being shared, not equally, but throughout more than one character. In this particular situation, it was Dustin Hoffman, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Rene Russo, and also Morgan Freeman. But it's
Yeah, but not as much. I would agree on the first three.
On the first three, wicked. But that's what really like occurred to me. Like the light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is what would happen if they. This is like Lethal Weapon had a virus in it. That's pretty much it. And I think it was really interesting because everybody, especially nowadays, because of the pandemic going on, the views on movies like this. I mean, Outbreak was put back into the Netflix lineup, and it's on fire. So has The Contagion. Yeah, all these virus movies, of course, are coming up, and everybody wants to watch it and get freaked out and everything. But when I thought that I would be a little put back, as I would with, like, a Soderbergh kind of thing, and it definitely is like, a situation where you have different directors and different production and different ideas behind it. But I would think that generally watching a movie that definitely reflects the kind of life-threatening things that we're dealing with today, that I'd be a little freaked out. Outbreak didn't do that, and it was because I realized it's not a virus movie; it's an action movie, and
that makes a lot of sense. And when we talked about this as our subject matter for the day,
yeah,
I was more interested in its reality to what we're going through, and the commentary of that.
Yeah.
Because this is a 25-year-old movie.
I know. I think it holds up really well. It's a fun movie.
But I also just wanted to see how dramatized it would be. Okay. Actually, with the majority of us living through a lot of these circumstances.
So are you wondering whether or not it would still have like the same kind of magic behind it now that we have a more of a closer association with what these situations could provide us?
I was more curious about the authenticity of it.
Right. Okay. Cool.
An outbreak happens, and it is a global outbreak,
right.
Situation or threat, right?
Right.
And then kind of what the political stances are, what the medical stances are, just every aspect of what's going on is that actually true to what our situation is?
Right. I feel you.
And go ahead.
No, well, it's life. It's art. It's art imitating life.
Right.
that old. Whatever.
And the interesting thing to me is, I think, was that you and me that had the conversation about the movie theater cough, or was that somebody else?
No, I don't think so.
Because I had another conversation with somebody else about the movie theater cough. And once this virus goes airborne, it's just even more brutal than what it was before, because now it's airborne and it's not human to human contact.
You're right. In fact, that kind of like brings up what we should come up with the byline, because usually at the top of the podcast we're gonna give because there may be people who haven't seen this movie. We want to let people know, like,
spoiler alert.
Everybody
dies.
Spoiler alerts. Spoiler alerts.
Everybody doesn't die.
That was a cheap ploy too. Like, they did that thing where, like, they had the mother who was saying goodbye to her kids,
right?
And she just
spoiler alerts.
You find out that she passes away because, like, Kevin Spacey's character, like, looks at her sample of her blood or whatever it is, and then he says, "Oh, damn it, positive."
It's so funny because, they're trying to humanize the fact that all of these scientists are going through all these samples.
Right.
But we're introduced to a very human family, and the mother of that family.
Yeah.
And her little journey through the concentration.
With dogs barking and everything. Yeah, so specifically when it comes to the way this thing was popping out, a really quick summary of the story and everything. IMDb says Army doctors struggle to find a cure for a deadly virus spreading throughout a California town that was brought to America by an African monkey. This whole thing is about how Dustin Hoffman's character, he plays Colonel Sam Daniels, who is, he has to be the best virus guy in the world. That's why he's with the Army. That's why he gets offers to the CDC, but tells him to go shove it because he has a capability of doing so. But his wife, Robbie, played by the ridiculously talented and beautiful Renee Russo, this is like 90s acting, like, royalty. I mean, this is ridiculous. This cast is ridiculous. But she gets called off to the CDC, and then on that side story, we see, this flashback of like Morgan Freeman's character and Donald Sutherland's character destroying this village and murdering people so that the virus initially doesn't get put out. But then the virus comes back, and it's all about how there's this slow burn to a reveal that Dustin Hoffman's character has to deal with, as part of the hero's journey to go through and go against his mentors, his friends, his authority as an army colonel to finally to the end of the film literally fly in the face of authority and adversity as he tries to save another town, which was actually
Cedar Creek,
which was shot in Ferndale, California, which is about 20 miles south of Eureka, Northern California, which is something else we have to go into because I want to talk about how it must have been so wicked to, again, have like this small actual town in California. Not the first time it's happened, but, the production vans are coming in the street. We're going to be able to, and all the local actors. I mean, it's something that people in Salt Lake deal with a lot because when Hollywood and different production companies come over here that aren't established here, it's like, it's going to be a good summer. Let's try and make this work, and it could be exciting and fun. But ultimately, they try and the big army bad guy played by Donald Sutherland says, you know what, my reputation can't be destroyed by this. I have to kill all these people. And it's all about how this movie, while still maintaining its action movie kind of roots, goes through and does have a metamorphosis to like, an animal movie, a race movie, a drama. It kind of goes through these different things that pop up for these split seconds. And through the use of these smaller stories that come in, these smaller bits of drama, and nicely put together like montages, for lack of a better term, it ends up being like, 3 movies in one, but ultimately it ends up holding true to like that action style format, I think. But ultimately it's about Dustin Hoffman coming to terms with authority and being able to use his wits and pushing aside his friends and his lover and his habits and everything to, be the guy who's going to save the world. And then at the end, welcome all those things that he pushed away back into his life. That's pretty much how it was from where I'm coming from. What do you think would be a good summary of this film as you were going through and watching it, Andrus? What were some of the things that popped out to you that, you didn't see before? I mean, how could you encapsulate this whole thing in like a sentence for you?
Oh my gosh, just a sentence?
Yeah. Not a diatribe that I that I went on.
You just went through?
Right.
I would just say it's one man's fight to save the people he loved, with super high stakes and not only his job on the line, his relationship on the line, but also humanity.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. I think that's really great. It's interesting to me how these and don't forget the dogs either. The dogs it definitely would have mutated. No. But
the ones he loves. How's that?
That's it. Yeah, exactly. We need to put a label on it. Hey, he's got a couple of dogs. They're awesome. I think it's very cool how, and action does this a lot, where it takes the besides the hero's journey that you're seeing come through, you do have like these little microcosms of these relationships that are expanded in a movie like this. Not only does he have to save his wife or his friends, Dustin Hoffman's character has to save the entire world. So it's interesting to me how through these little snippets where we're doing, it's always a 1v1 kind of situation too. It's always Dustin Hoffman or Cuba Gooding Jr., or Dustin Hoffman or Rene Russo, or Dustin Hoffman and Kevin Spacey or Morgan Freeman or whatever. And then it gets tossed, where it's like Morgan Freeman and Donald Sutherland, or like, Cuba Gooding Jr. and Kevin Spacey, or something like that. The scenes that mean the most, are always going to be between one character and one other character. And then it uses the threats and the stresses that expand from that, and they say, okay, well, now with this next scene, it's not going to affect just these two people. We're going to see how it affects this group. Then we're going to see how it affects this town. Then we're going to see how it affects this world. And I think, honestly, it's really this style of writing that was super popular in the 90s, where you're able to see, that's how they're able to go through and take the hero's journey, and they're able to put it on these other characters and let them run with it a little bit, especially when it comes to Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, Major Salt, who was like, he's the
new guy.
He's the greenhorn. And you could see how, especially in the scene where he sees the poor kid who's sitting there with his dead parents, and he has pustules all over him, and he's sitting there like, puking his guts out. Cuba Gooding Jr. is. That's the beginning of his hero's journey. That's the beginning where his hero, his character meets tragedy, and now the rest of it's going to have to come up, and he's going to have to make up for being a coward in that regard by doing these heroic things and helping Dustin Hoffman and being his Guy Friday throughout the entire movie. But action movies, I think, are the only ones that do this. You're not going to see the same kind of display in drama, definitely not in horror or comedy. You're going to see like watered down versions of it. But that's one reason I think why I ended up really liking this movie. It's not going to get an Oscar or anything, but you can get a masterclass in 1v1 storytelling when you have, again, like these heavy hitters. When you have a scene with Dustin Motherlovin' Hoffman and Morgan Motherlovin' Freeman, and the only thing that they have to go off of is that I'm angry for reason X.
Right.
It's entertaining to me.
Right. It is entertaining. It's a really, really fun movie.
It's super fun.
Not the subject matter, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me that I saw it about the same time. Once I realized that we're talking about 1995.
Yeah.
I was a junior in high school.
Nice.
Or depending on what time of year it came out. For me, I would imagine that this is a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Probably one of the blockbusters, right?
How dare you? How dare you?
I know, I had to. Because it's so.
It's definitely an Easter movie. I mean, please.
Easter movie, for sure.
No, okay.
Thank you for that.
You're
yes. Thank you, Steve Carell. I appreciate it. Hashtag Steve Carell. Okay, so with it coming out probably in the summertime.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess. That would have put me in my junior year, right? Going into my senior year. And thinking back at how naive 17-year-old version of who I am
right.
and watching this movie and not understanding the whole scope of really what they're talking about. I understood life and death. I understood pustules. I understood sickness. I understood urgency. I understood military. I understood the segments of everything.
Right.
What I didn't understand was everything combined.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure.
I didn't understand the severity of the political aspects for hiding what was being hidden in the show.
Well, they had to have like the bad government guy.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Because you have to have a villain, but
is the man. I mean, Donald has been a big. I don't want to say hero of mine, but certainly I have appreciated his career.
Yeah, totally. He's such a talented actor, but I mean, he kind of has gotten pushed like in the latter decade of his career into kind of getting typecast a little bit. I mean, like he had some.
Well, he's been playing villains for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he does it really well, but I mean, it's always good to like see him as a good guy too sometimes.
Yeah, no, I would prefer to see him as the good guy because I really do enjoy him.
Yeah.
But understanding what I was watching back in the day versus what I'm watching now and what the world is going through now.
Yeah.
I think that it's a lot scarier in real life than what this movie depicts.
Yeah.
Even though there's a lot of impassioned speeches going on and all of the action that's going on in this movie, I don't think that it did hit the reality of what is going on. I completely
agree with you. I completely agree.
But the reality of the real life aspect of this, and it's a movie. I get it. We're in the movie business. I get it. But I think people nowadays are also really desensitized to kind of fluff and falsities and overshooting things.
Yeah.
We understand what the reality is. So it would be a very different movie if it was going to be made today.
Well, it's interesting the way that you put that up too, because this movie absolutely was affected by real time events as well. There were Ebola outbreaks in the 90s, and I don't know if you can see this on the screen that I'm pushing to you, but I just had to do a quick Google search of Ebola in the 90s, and Newsweek just pops up with its front cover back in May of 95 about how there's this new killer virus that's popping up in Africa. And obviously this, like all movies, like all art, is going to be reflective in some way of things that are happening in the real world. I think it's interesting how you put it up, where it's nice to have this. It's nice to have it work in reverse a little bit and actually have it, because it's so far-fetched, because it is an action movie, I can take some joy out of it. I mean, that's a reason we talked about doing Contagion too, that Soderbergh film that came out in 2005 or something like that. And that, definitely because of Soderbergh's style, has a more realistic, I think, view than Outbreak would have, but it also has a more depressing one. And I think it's interesting how we can take a look and see that difference, right? Where our heads were at from a kind of a societal kind of situation. Even though during that time there were terrifying things happening in part of the world, we're still able to make a popcorn munching movie that kind of makes fun of it a little bit. And even now, when we're dealing with the pandemic on our shores in our country, I was still able to disassociate a little bit because, to your point, it wasn't as realistic as it could be.
I dissociated from the very beginning. It's just a movie.
Yeah,
I'm watching a movie. I didn't feel the threat of it at all.
Yeah, because it wasn't. You're thinking to yourself, well, I'm confident in thinking that wouldn't happen. That specifically.
No, not necessarily. Because talking about it afterward, I'd be terrified.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? It's the aftermath of the movie, the real conversation about what we just saw in an entertainment aspect. Going in and having a real grounded conversation about, okay, so what would you do presented with a virus that has a 48-hour initial symptoms to,
and mortality rate of 100%.
Fatality.
Yeah.
48 freaking hours, dude. 48.
Yeah, to call back that scene that we were talking about before. Of course, with any kind of epidemic movie, you have to have the map of the country, and you have to have the time lapse with how many people are getting infected. You got the man Donald Sutherland talking about, the virus has been here on our shores for the past 12 hours. These are our current estimates. These are estimates at 36 hours. At 48 hours, entire country decimation, or whatever the hell he said, which is what his character is using as a way to legitimize, nuking this town, Cedar Creek, as a way to obliterate the virus. I will never, when they're done right in a way that there's a proper amount of melodrama, that I can take it seriously enough in my suspension of disbelief, but still be able to throw it away, I will never get tired of that stuff, ever. We had the speech, you were talking about.
That's every movie out there.
Oh, I know.
Here's a grain of truth, and here's all of the embellishments on top of it.
But why do you think action films get to take? Why is it that when I'm watching this movie and I have that voice in the back of my head that says, "Oh, that would never happen," it doesn't bother me? But when I'm watching a drama, or when I'm watching a comedy or something or even a romantic movie, that takes me out of it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, because I think because it is so extreme.
Right.
There's no
it's playing at the borders.
The reality.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, I love being entertained by movies, and this one did not fall
Didn't
short.
disappoint.
Or short. And it's so interesting because like there's so many quality actors in this.
Let's talk about the cast. Let's dive deep into the cast.
Well,
dude. Okay, so like for the main cast overview, we have Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey, Cuba Gooding Jr., Donald Sutherland, Patrick Dempsey,
McDreamy.
Oh my goodness! And even the supporting cast was great. We're talking Susan Lee Hoffman, who is a highly successful television and movie actress, Benito Martinez, Bruce Jarkow, Dale Dye. These are Dale Dye played the Colonel Briggs.
By the way, did you recognize Benito? I've got to ask you this.
Did I recognize Benito?
Yeah, click on his name and see what his credits are. I'm excited to see your face if you didn't look him up.
Okay. Who played Dr. Julio Ruiz? Unless he's Castilian, maybe it's Ruiz. Oh, jeez. No. He was in Sons of Anarchy?
Go on.
Oh, my goodness, dude. That's cool.
Oh, you clicked on How to Get
Away with Murder. But again, like, you know.
By the way, I totally guilty pleasure binged How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah?
All of it.
We can do a binge episode for sure. I'm watching a lot of animation, actually. Hold on one second. Even though this laptop is pretty hardcore, it can't handle the bit rate of our intense conversation and still give me websites as quickly as I would like. The Blacklist. This guy's been hardcore with TV and everything, which would be fine with a lot of great supporting actors that are coming through. Oh, he was in House of Cards. That's interesting. Hector Mendoza. Okay.
Okay, how interesting. And I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah. No, I get it. Dude. So that's one thing that I do love about this too. Everybody recognizes that. Well, hopefully you recognize who Dustin Hoffman is, Rene Russo, Morgan Freeman. But this is always a surprising thing when you see like these competent, what I like to call real world actors, and I hold you in that same regard, Andrus. People who may not have as big of an IMDb profile, but those are actors that like, you know how to work it. They know how to work. They don't have to worry about getting jobs because they're so good. They're willing to diversify and willing to do whatever they have to in order to be successful because they love it. TV roles, theater roles, movie roles. I mean, these are the people in Hollywood that I really do respect just as much as, like, you know, from people who come from more my background, which would be like The Crew. And it's just so refreshing to me to see just the evolution of some of these people. Like when you see like Patrick Dempsey, who is now a regular name in Hollywood, how he started off with Jimbo. This is one of his first big roles. And
one of his first big feature film roles.
Yeah. And when you see where these people have come from, I mean, like, especially when you're looking at this movie and how really gorgeous and young all of them look, and it kind of like explains something to me. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense as to like how they're huge now when you see them in these older roles and see what they're capable of doing.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've always wanted a career where it's just had longevity.
Yeah.
When I first started out, of course, I'm seeing stars and I'm seeing fortune and I'm seeing fame and I'm seeing everything else. But once I really got into the thick of it, ultimately what I want is longevity in the business. I love the business so much. I love movies.
Yeah.
Movies are just a big part of me and what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So the fact that now we get to just like talk about them.
It's a beautiful thing. And I think like, especially nowadays, seeing as things like this bring so much comfort to people too. Everybody is talking about, you know.
Right now, that's all there is to do other than learn. You know?
Yeah.
Learn, decompress, watch a show, do some yard work if you have the yard to do it.
Mm-hmm. And go back in and binge Community or something like that. Right. It's intense to me how, and that's another thing too, like on that subject, how meaningful this art form really is to me. Like when you're sitting down and, especially in my situation, I have an elderly person who lives with me. The last thing I would want is for her to like, you know, come down with anything. So by myself, yeah, I would venture out. I'd put on my mask and I would go out and maybe like take a walk or get some groceries or whatever like that.
Mm-hmm.
In the situation that I'm in now, it's been complete isolation. I've been getting my groceries, delivered to me. I've been getting my work at home, luckily enough.
Mm-hmm.
Having like Netflix and having Amazon Prime and having Disney Plus and all this other stuff, it's been so very meaningful to me from a mental health standpoint. I'm still doing my aerobics in the morning so that I can kind of lose the quarantine 15. But it has become so important to me to be able to digest this material in this way, especially now. And I think that's probably something that a lot of people nowadays are sharing. How interesting it would be to be locked in this situation and not be able to have that source, that artistic source to vent. And yeah, I mean, like, I don't want to romanticize it too much. Sometimes it's just, me sitting down with a bowl of chips and it's like, okay, well, I have some, I don't know, I'm watching Friends or some stuff like that.
Well, I think it's a disconnect from reality that's much needed for mental health.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
These days. Now, in previous days where, we weren't in such a pandemic, or
where you're avoiding responsibility versus actually mentally taking care of yourself.
I mean, one thing that I've said in the past after anything that I do throughout my day is, okay, I need my decompression. My decompression is turning on a show.
Yeah.
Sometimes that means either with a beverage or without a beverage. Sometimes that means with a bag of chips. Sometimes that means with a bag of popcorn. Whatever it is, right? It's a legitimate decompression for me to let go of anything that I was holding onto that day, and just mindlessly focus on something else.
Yeah. Stop gripping it so tightly, so maybe you can actually process it. Yeah. Oh,
it then ends up inspiring, or
absolutely.
It ends up creating a conversation, or it then ends up informing. I mean, I've seen so many shows that have educated me on subject matters that I didn't know I was ignorant to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Me too. And I think that's one other thing too that we can take back, because this movie in and of itself was kind of like this remembrance of the way that particular kind of filmmaking was really encapsulating. This was, when CGI was first beginning to become a major thing, and it had this really great mixture. There's this nice shot where like Dustin Hoffman's character can tell that the virus has become aerosol, it's become airborne, which makes it even more dangerous. Where he's going through, and there's this panning shot through the vents of the hospital, and it's all CGI. And also there's that scene that you were talking about earlier about like in the movie theater when one of the victims sneezes and there's CGI like spit droplets or whatever that are affecting people. Mixed with that, we have huge wide shots. We have one-shot pans of whole battalions of army soldiers running down a street. We have floods of helicopters zooming up that are, literally from a production standpoint, dangerously close to the crew and the cast that are doing it. But that's what was necessary. They figured out the angles and they found out how they could do it in real time. And it's just this beautiful mixture and remembrance of like, we have 500 people that have to be in this shot. We have to make sure that everybody's doing something right now, and it has to make sense. And I loved being reminded about like this big time, huge production level that was coming out in the 90s. Really like right off of the back of like Jurassic Park and like Lethal Weapon and like all these other things that were popping up, and Die Hard, where you had like but Die Hard might have been may not have been in the 90s, but these huge production, huge. No, close.
I think it was a little bit earlier,
yeah. But you get my point, right? Where like it was so cool to see like that juxtaposition, knowing now where movies are at, where a lot of the production is on sound stages and blue screens. Not everything, obviously. But and it makes sense. It costs less than it would be to hire 1,000 extras just to run across the street for the day or something like that. But it was educating to me, and it allowed me to like look back and be I miss that kind of filmmaking. I was never in a production that large, but I touched enough to know how fun and terrifying that experience must have been. And to your point that you're talking about before, it's not only like being able to be educated about certain subject matter through this art form, but one thing I take away from it in addition to that is like the remembrance, like being able to put myself and empathize with like, the crew, the head gaffer, the best boy, the DP who have to make that stuff pop. And you're not wasting, but you're spending so much money per minute, you got to get it right. And like this was a really good remembrance of of those techniques, and that's one other thing that really kind of brought a smile to my face when I was watching this.
So as you were talking about that, I started thinking about one of the talking points that I wanted to bring up, which was what within this movie for you ring true to reality.
Oh yeah, like, going back to that point, yeah.
Throughout this movie, there's a lot of things and themes that a lot of people could still identify with going through.
Yeah.
What was one for you?
Honestly, it's a little metaphysical, but what really got to me was the fear. When we get to Cedar Creek, there's this great scene where you have a couple of these people who just want to get out of town, and call them what you will. I mean, you could call them like, country bumpkins or whatever.
Well, no, I would just call them the ones that wanted to run for it.
I got you.
Go for it. Yeah.
So you see these four individuals. There are these two trucks, and
one's a family.
That's right.
One's a family, and the other one's like some good old boys.
Some good old boys. You're right. And the good old boys are in front, and they're in their pickup trucks, and damn it, we're gonna get out of town no matter what. And there's like these follow us. There's these really cool shots where you see like the general like picket line of soldiers, and they're like, no, please don't. And it ends up being a situation where one of the guys in the of the good old boys crew actually takes his hunting rifle and shoots at the army helicopter. To the credit of the army, they were like, hey, look, we are going to shoot you. Please stop, over and over again. And ultimately, the country bumpkin guys, they take it on the head. They get blown up because they were trying to be violent and that kind of stuff.
Well, and I think the movie did that in such a respectable way.
Sure.
And a way that made a lot of sense to me as far as the severity of what was going on in
what
the
people
town,
are willing to do.
the idea of quarantine. But like stupid people do stupid things.
That's
like
you're right.
The consequences they're in that moment were deadly.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And I love the look on the dude, the father, the guy.
They just held the shot while he's holding his little boy, and like his wife is like in the background. They're both just like hunkered down.
I mean, the wife in that scene did not do it for me. Acting that moment. But the dude, I thought did a really solid job of understanding what that scene was about for me.
Yeah.
Where he just saw people that he knew probably his entire life.
Yeah.
Just got taken out by his own government.
Yeah. That's
trying to quarantine their town, and how severe that was.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I can also understand why the government would want to contain the situation in the way that they want to do that by blowing up the whole town.
Yeah.
Because if you annihilate the entire town, there's no spread of the disease.
There you go.
With as severe as this disease was, as its infectious rate is, what else do you do?
Yeah, that's pretty much the big question. Well, that's one thing that's a big question that luckily was answered though, because they were able to, against all odds, Cuba Gooding Jr. and Dustin Hoffman's characters were able to fly out in the middle of California.
Oh
man.
It's just like, yay, Hollywood.
I love it. That would
I love their journey to find the host.
Exactly. First of all, would never happen. That's it. But it's such a great journey, because at that point, that's like the third act. Dustin Hoffman and Cuba Gooding Jr. are now at the same point in their hero's journey, and they're fighting against they're fighting against authority. They're fighting against the big bad. This
fugitives at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting to me how like this organization, being the U.S. Army, was at first the springboard for protection, for good things. I mean, Dustin Hoffman's character is again a colonel in the Army, and that's the reason as to why he has the influence he has, the capabilities he has to find this. But then not only with Donald Sutherland's influence, but the whole Army becomes the bad guy. And then you see our two heroes, which is customary in regards to the hero's journey, finding redemption through fighting the true evil and being true to themselves. It was inside them all along, Andrus, and they're able to find the monkey and like find a cure.
Yeah, we always knew that they were heroes.
Yeah,
because I need a hero, right?
I love it.
But for me, the reality check.
Yeah, what was the thing that really resonated with you? When you were looking at the movie and you were like, "Whoa, that."
Well, so for me, there were a couple of really poignant moments in there. One is the quarantine situation.
Yeah.
Where literally this town is set under martial law quarantine.
That's right.
Like they were threatening what I thought was more like death over being arrested, even though they said you will be arrested, blah, 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 blah. Right. But the idea of people having a curfew and being locked in and locked down and all of that made me also think of Scream and how Scream had a curfew and a quarantine-esque element to it. But I mean, the idea of quarantine has never really hit home the way that it's hitting home now.
No, of course not. Yeah.
So the fact that I got to see that in a more extreme light gave me an appreciation for what we're going through.
Yeah.
The fact that it's voluntary right now, we still have our freedom.
I think that
we're just choosing to practice.
That's right. I think that was kind of the special sauce too on that was like, you're thinking about, well, how far are we from being in martial law in real life?
No, for sure.
And that kind of like put some extra Tabasco on the movie because it's like, oh my goodness, this is pretty close. I don't know.
It could go to that extreme in a heart if people were genuinely stupid and, are congregating outside of, certain locations doing stupid things together. But so that was one. The reaction to both Cuba Gooding Jr. Removing his mask in Africa, and also the scare that
that Rene Russo was.
The two scares with the suits.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The finger prick. And also the blood situation. But Dustin Hoffman almost has a moment of infection.
Yep.
We think that maybe Kevin Spacey gets away from it. Ultimately, we find out that spoiler. He doesn't.
Spoiler alert.
And then, of
spoiler
course,
alert.
In the thick of it, then the relationships come into play, and then Renee Russo has an issue with it as well. Her character. So I think that it's really interesting that like all of these people who are super intelligent, informed, capable, know what the stakes are. They're still human. They're still flawed. They still make mistakes.
Yeah.
Still are reactive. And I thought that was very, very true to what life is, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think it was pretty beautiful how, even though I did think it was a little corny, but with but the last scene,
it was more duct tapey to me.
Yeah, right, exactly. There's a hole in your suit. Like I just don't know what they spraying this arm for. It's duct tape. It's fine. But when Dustin Hoffman knows he's going to get infected, but he sacrifices that so he can have a kiss with his ex-wife, Renee Russo, knowing
not even a kiss, a face touch.
Oh, dude. That was intense. Yeah. It made me happy. I was like, come on. But then after like reviewing it a little bit in my head, I was like, yeah, okay, that's good.
No, but here's the thing. What degree of confidence that you've kicked this virus's ass?
Right.
I mean, he knew.
Right. See,
it wasn't a question for me. He knew he kicked its ass. He knew he was safe.
Okay. So you think it was probably like an empty gesture?
No, I think it was more of the love gesture.
Okay. He's doing it for her. He's doing it for her.
He's doing it for you.
I gotcha.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah.
That actually kind of like made me think about it as
beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And
in a really cheesy way.
Well, sometimes cheese is good.
I love cheese.
Yeah, no, I put it on everything. But there's also that same kind of what you were talking about before about the reality too. When it comes to what we're dealing with now with COVID-19, it definitely isn't as lethal for everybody as the virus that's depicted here in Outbreak. But it does kind of beg the question, when will everybody truly be safe to touch each other's face and to kiss and to do all these other things? I mean, the situation is ruining relationships. It's also improving some, but...
Well, here's my opinion on that. I think that all of those who have an immunity to it will end up going out and starting social interactions in a COVID positive scenario. And those that are immunocompromised by whatever their situation is and cannot tolerate the virus in a healthy way, I think are probably going to suffer more isolation than anybody that's been through it.
I agree.
It's interesting too, because like, I don't know anything about what the testing process is and what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But at some point, everybody's going to be a member of The Walking Dead.
That's a good point. Yeah.
By a virus like this. And I would imagine it's the same with influenza, right?
Yeah.
Is like the majority of us probably have already been through it or have had some sort of interaction with it. Therefore, our systems are fighting it off already.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be a new world to see how we socially engage each other.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're already having ways in which we're finding ways to talk with each other is different. This podcast being a testament to that. Finding ways in which we can entertain and still be together in a community. But it's one thing to look at this flash from the pan action adventure. That is one thing that I wish the movie could have stretched out a little bit more. I did not like the ending, how it ended a little abruptly. To your point, to what you're talking.
Really dumb line too, by the way. I did not like how it ended on her line at all.
Yeah, me neither.
She could have said something a lot more meaningful in that moment.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like the '90s fashion kind of situation where it's okay to get out with like shuck and jive more than anything else.
That also leads us to believe that the conversation continues. Their story isn't over.
Yeah,
we're going on to another part of the journey.
And that was my main point in bringing up this part of our conversation. I think you make a really good point in regards to how this is going to change things and how people who have the capability of developing immunity have the capability of being able to go out and turn this into part of their lives easier than others. There's definitely going to be there's going to be a lot of frustrated people, to put it lightly. I wish that could have been explored, maybe just for like another few minutes in the end of the outbreak. Like maybe we could have gone through and talked about maybe they could have talked about how not everybody was killed, but now how life has to change, or like a couple of shots where like there's still a military presence in Cedar Creek or something like that. That would have been a better ending for me.
I think that probably just opens up too many open-ended conversations in a way. Because I mean, if you were to go down that path, then I'm going to be curious as far as, okay, well, the good old boys, how did that affect their families?
Yeah, exactly.
Are they the only ones that are surviving members of their families, and it's okay that they were obliterated because of their choices? The same thing with the family with the mom. Now, who's to blame?
Yeah.
Ultimately?
Yeah.
Who's to blame is the government, but the government is also the protector.
Yeah.
So there's contrast into what our argument is going to be, and is the one person that was trying to harness the power of this virus for bioweapon purposes. Is that just, or is it
justified?
Harmony, justified, right? So I think there's a lot of conversations that are so open-ended that just takes away from it.
Okay.
I would have loved to have seen a different ending in a way, not necessarily the love story that they had in there, because I agree with you that it's an action film. I would have liked to have seen them land.
Okay.
And the idea that they are going to go, having them make the juice.
Oh, okay.
End of story. But then again, of course, we need to find out if Rene Russo survives.
Oh, of course.
We need to find out if whoever else their life is in the balance if they survive.
Yeah.
But I think we got enough of an ending with the chicken race in the sky.
Yeah.
And also the fact that we have the host and the host has survived. I think that was enough of an ending, and we have our heroes making their triumphant presence.
Yeah, they're redeemed, and now they have the capability to provide victory. So let's move on to the last part of the podcast, and the part of the discussion we always go to. And I really do want to kind of like dig in your head a little bit in regards to this, because the cast here is ridiculously strong.
Top shelf.
Absolutely. No question. No question.
Yeah.
Do you think that if we were to take, I want to get your thoughts about like the strength of the cast, from an actor's perspective, what you thought of the acting and how you think people gel, the chemistry and that kind of thing. But what I really wanted to get down to as well, in addition to that question, was do you think this cast would be able to make a movie that was just as fun as would they be able to make Outbreak 2 today, keep the entire cast that they have from the previous incarnation, and still have it be as enjoyable?
The same cast?
Yeah, but have it reflect like the sign of the times. You know what I mean?
The answer is no.
Is it just because they're aged now? Do you think that's the reason?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that it is. I mean, 25 years in anybody's life is a lot of time. I think the movie changes completely based on everybody kind of aging out in the context of what this film is trying to do. Could they take the idea of a virus movie and make something better because the cast is so stellar? The answer is hell to the yeah. It just depends on what the story is.
Right.
It would be interesting if they were to just do like a voice version of it without any of the visuals.
Oh man, yeah, like a radio drama.
Yeah,
that would be dope.
That would be a really interesting take on what this is, because I believe all of them are still around.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the only that we don't have with us, unfortunately, is he was such a great actor, the chief of staff, Walsh.
Oh yeah.
Is that his name? I'm now second guessing it. Will you double check that for me on our wonderful IMDb link? But I think it's Walsh. And he was so good as the chief of staff. He was so good.
You can just throw it down with that soliloquy.
Yeah. Do you know what? I have it open on my own damn screen. Why don't I just look at my... What am I doing?
But the cast is strong regardless of age. It's just the delivery system from a artistic standpoint that has to change.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it is a story related change. There's so much to be said about the capability of these actors, their star power alone.
Yeah.
All of them are still relevant.
Yeah,
all of them are still around. I think that says something about the people that made this movie to begin with.
For sure. They knew the combination. They knew the equation. They knew the secret sauce. No question.
Yeah.
And they were able to follow in the footsteps of like other 90s blockbusters that were coming out around this time and just go punch for punch with them. And the fact that now, while we're in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a virus, and we're still able to look at something like this and have fun with it, speaks to like, they knew they were making an action movie dressed as a world-ending dramatic. And the fact that we can still look at it now and still have fun with it, I think is a testament to like their competency when it came to what they were doing when they were behind the camera.
Well, and like for whatever reason, this one definitely stands out in my brain and nostalgia and memory as the virus movie in my life, in my childhood, in my growing up years.
Yeah, and you were right. It is J.T. Walsh who played the chief of staff.
Man,
excellent character actor, excellent actor in general.
So excellent. So I mean, as far as how they did in this movie in context to what we're used to now in film and in acting, it was a different style of acting back then, but it still was
a lot of side by sides for sure.
Within the scope of what's believable in context of what that world is. So I really liked everybody's performance in there. There were a lot of things from secondary characters that I didn't necessarily buy as much, because that was also the style
Yeah.
back then, is to be a little bit more hot-headed and over the top in their performance.
Yeah.
But like, I've got to tell you, Patrick Dempsey, I remember him from Can't Buy Me Love.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him in this movie. And when I was watching his scene with just the monkey sending the monkey into the redwoods, I thought that was such a touching, beautiful moment.
It really was cool.
And they really captured a genuine moment from him, which helped me follow the movie and get into the story.
It made his character more human. Where like at first you see him like stealing this monkey and like doing it for nefarious means, but then
he's like this like, you know, loud hippie.
Yeah.
I mean, he's this grunge dude.
You feel sorry for him when he dies.
Spoiler alert.
You know.
Spoiler alert.
And you know, there's that moment on the plane as well. And I mean, he wasn't a big part of the movie as far as screen time, but he was memorable.
Yeah, he started the fire. He's the one that humanized this, so people would be able to empathize, so that every person who got sick from that point forward wasn't just a moving head. It was somebody that we could empathize with and say, oh, what if I was in that hospital bed?
Right.
I respect
and he was
that.
so full of life. I love that they got a character right away that was so full of life.
Yeah.
That was now
smart
removed by how powerful this virus
out of the
is.
equation. Yeah.
Then, I mean, you've got all of your other cast in there that, I mean, we could just talk for days and days and days about. Dustin Hoffman, Morgan Freeman, Rene Russo. Cuba was on fire at that time.
On fire. Wow.
Donald Sutherland. But then the one that I wanted to talk to you about was Kevin Spacey.
Okay.
Because, you know, I really hate the fact that his personal choices have removed him from.
It bothers me too.
From the screen.
Yeah.
From the art form, because he is so stinking good.
He is ridiculously good.
That I have, and of course, you know, the next podcast that we're gonna do, he's a player.
Yeah. He's like, are we trying to say something with? No, absolutely not. In fact, we've taken a small amount of time, because we have talked about Kevin Spacey before. We've taken time on the podcast to address that, you know, our feelings about that situation, and how it's hard as fans to separate the man from the parts that he's played, and it's just this terribly unfortunate for all parties involved. This unfortunate amount of circumstance that are a product of Kevin Spacey's actions, which were just uncalled for, and it's just this really unfortunate and awful thing.
It really sucks, but people are people, and you know, they make choices and they make decisions, and they've got to be held accountable.
Yeah, and they have to be held responsible. There's no question.
But man, watching a movie that he's in, it's watching a masterclass in so many different facets of this business.
Yeah,
and the fact that I don't get to experience that on a more regular basis. I mean, House of Cards was one of the shows I was jazzed about getting into every single time it was available. It's heartbreaking. It really is.
Yeah, so, especially for you. I imagine it's probably resonates on a level that I still have yet to understand. He's
certainly somebody I looked up to as far as my acting career goes.
Yeah.
I mean, his roles, I would love to play every single one that he has played. I mean, I haven't seen all of his movies, but I would really like to have a career that has had such diversity.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. But I'm picking up what you're putting down, and it's really interesting to see how I think that when you look back, and I don't want to speak for you, but the general gist that I get is that when you look back at movies like this, where you can see some of the greats, but some of the greats when they were in their prime. It has to be refreshing, and it has to be really meaningful, because you can take notes, you know, especially given your career and how long you've been able to stay in the game.
Right.
how you're able to refine certain things by just being entertained. It has to be this incredible thing, I would imagine.
It is. It is. And it's such a great reminder, too, that what I was doing for so long was so wrong.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing to watch something that was done 25 years ago that I'm just like, oh, had I paid attention to that? All it is. That's all it was.
Hindsight's
It was
2020.
It was an honest moment.
Yeah.
It's about power, or it's about love, or it's about not having love, or it's about chasing
Right.
life or death. I mean,
that's honestly one of my favorite things in the world, and it only comes with experience, unfortunately.
right.
But when you can look back and you can see something that was at that time in your life when you were just beginning or just doing whatever, how it may have seemed insurmountable. But then you look at it from where you're at now and you're like, oh, wait a minute. All I had to do was move a little bit to the left. Oh, and I did. Okay, well, oh, thank God. It's always refreshing me to be reminded that, yeah, I know that now.
It's another validation that at least the path that I'm on now is
At least you'll
very,
learn something. Yeah.
very, I'm excited for what comes next, hopefully.
That's great. That's great.
What about you? Your perspective?
From a point when it comes to like the sound of production, I'm not giving it the highest marks, only because I could recognize sound effects in this movie that were definitely used in other movies that come from this particular time frame.
Come on.
And I understand, I get it, but I'm a huckster for like actually going out and re-recording the M16 firing every time for every different movie. I mean, you have to work hard.
Why? Because the environment changes.
I know. Also, I got tired by the main danger theme that popped up, maybe the second time that I heard it. It's all the same thing. You have like the synthy brass kind of thing going on, and like you have like the heavy drums, boom, boom, or something like that. Not that cheesy, you know what I mean? But
What about all of the military scenes with the planes and the helicopters?
Yeah, no. We have to preface this by saying like it's been a few years since I've been in production. My career is not as flourishing as yours is at the moment.
For it, sir.
So I don't want to come off as saying, "Hey, I'm the guy you got to talk to if you want to talk about sound in Hollywood."
But your opinion is what people are listening. Our 6 people are listening to.
You're right. So I'm gonna do what I can to do it justice, but I also want to be humble enough to know that there are people out there that are way better at this, and you should be listening to them. But when I fall for this trap a lot when I look at the expanse of a production and I realize how hard it must have been to get the sound right when you have so many things that can make it go wrong. I mean, they were shooting in Hawaii, they were shooting in America and California. There were airplanes coming by. There was a huge cast of people and extras that had to be covered. Sometimes, because I want to give so much credit to the head sound production team to capture that competently, that leads me to kind of stay on the end. Well, you know what? That was a really hard job, and given what they did a pretty good job. And that's honestly the opinion I have when it comes to like these huge wide shots that are coming through. You could definitely tell where some things were edited in post because the equalization would have been different. But one thing I do want to give credit for is that when it came to the 1v1 scenes where you had like the side by sides where it was Dustin Hoffman versus Who and vice versa. It is hard to respect the space that an actor has to deal with when it comes to sound. Really, technically, it's just making sure you just stop recording at the right time if you want to be completely blunt in regards to it. But I would really like to know how many shots they gave those actors to get those takes and to go through and make sure that it was edited so that there was enough breadth in between it so that you could really tell that their character was angry or sad or whatever. I'm getting into the weeds a little bit with it, but I really enjoyed most about the movie, besides all of the artillery and everything, the one-on-one stuff where they were able to really capture there wasn't any change in sound. You couldn't hear the boom moving. What I mean.
So one thing I'm going to ask you about that then is, because I was curious about this, the moments of silence as far as room ambient tones and stuff like that.
Sure.
Inside their lab in the Pentagon or the whatever.
Yeah.
Or their lab outside the hospital in Cedar Creek.
Yeah.
And their lab in the hospital or the rooms.
I think they plugged a lot of that stuff up with Foley I couldn't tell, obviously, if it was like, made in a lab, or if they did have some really excellent Foley artists who were there in the studio and plodding along with the scene. But it was, when you're dealing with something like that, it's really so easy to say that the post was lazy. And I'm like, yeah.
I like lazy.
Okay.
The centrifuge.
Yeah, no. Yeah, exactly. Okay. That didn't sound like glass breaking when the guy put his finger in there. Okay, I'm sorry. It's not.
No, I'm sorry. Like, don't you lose a hand?
Yeah, exactly.
Blood, or is
and what is he listening to? Like, he wasn't like, there is that general, like, pay the royalties to actually have the name Knicks or Yankees or something put in the radio broadcast. I know I'm nitpicking so effing much right now. It was a great movie. It was a great movie.
Because I was kind of aware of a lot of that. So
yeah, and like that's the thing too. That's the curse. The more
generic.
it is generic, but I mean, like they have to keep it. You're not watching it for the sounds, but yeah, dude. But I mean, ultimately, I wouldn't have been able to do a better job. I would have been. Oh man, I came to like this premonition too. I wish that I was older so that I could have been doing film in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I really do. It must have been so. Again, like back to what we were mentioning before, so terrifying, but so fun and so competent. That was like the MacGyver years, like even more so than like in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Because you had like this new technology coming out and these really cool toys that you could use. And it was such a juxtaposition between the new and the old coming through and giving it and birthing this more technological, more capable, more shiny dog barking in the background. No, way in which we shoot now in the 2000s and the 2010s and that kind of stuff too. It is always refreshing to see how it evolves,
Yeah, and it does.
But we're going to call it quits in regards to that, everybody, because once we start talking about evolution, that's a conversation for another podcast and another movie. But we do really appreciate you taking your time and listening to us. Even though Andrus and I are far away, we are still close to each other in our hearts, and hopefully into yours.
Our voices are now overlapping.
Indeed. We're floating heads. We're holograms. If you like what we're doing, feel free to let us know. pullfocuspod@gmail.com. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on SoundCloud. And remember, above all else, remember, we may be wrong, but it's your job to tell us. And again, another shout out to all the incredible medical crews and workers, the frontline personnel who are helping us through this hard time. Shout out to you. If you're listening, we thank you, we love you, we need you, and God bless you. And Andrus, my partner, my friend, thank you so very much for taking time out of what is a very, very rigorous time in your life and giving me the chance to talk to you about one of our favorite subjects again. I love you. And I really do appreciate you taking time to, bend my ear and have your ear be bent by my devastating opinion.
Yes, I'm glad that we're at a place where we can also do that.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you for taking out of your very busy schedule.
Well, I have to, I'm just binging. We're just binging. Okay, cool. We're done. You guys take care. Thank you very much. We love you. Bye.